Hello, lads and lattices. That was a terrible opening.
Lattices, like fencing.
No, with a D, like lad.
Yeah, but it's lass isn't it? Not lattices.
I think it works both ways.
Okay.
And all of you lovely non-binary people, this is the Best Games Period, the show where we talk about words and also video games, and occasionally we discuss whether or not they're the best games of all time. I'm your host, Jack Gardner. I don't know why my intonation is all over the place today. And this is my amazing, wonderful, and all-around talented co-host, Naomi Lugo.
Who is not currently looking up lattices to see if that's a real word.
It's not. It's. I mean, it could be. Maybe.
It's not.
Well,
It's not.
then I'm just like Shakespeare, aren't I? So
Sure. Modest comparison for sure.
the Best Games Period, the Shakespeare of podcasts.
Oh god. Yep, you heard it here first, folks.
Oh goodness. This is our best of 2018 episode. And we agreed to keep it kind of short because not the episode itself, but like our the games we're going to talk about. Just cuz if we each picked 10 games, that would give us like a minute or two to talk about each one, and we want to talk longer than that. So, we have a top 3 list, and I don't know, do you want to do like an honorable mention in there anywhere?
I mean, how about if it strikes my fancy, I will shout out an honorable mention.
Did any of them strike your fancy?
I mean, I have a couple in mind, but I don't know if I want to talk about them yet.
This feels like something we should have figured out before the show, but
nah.
F it.
These lovely folks come here for our spontaneity and general disarray.
We're doing it live, except
oh god,
except I forgot
Bill O'Reilly.
I forgot to put the podcast on live for our Patreon listeners. This is sure off to a good start. You're great.
We're recording on an off day, folks, so you're gonna get like tier C, Jack and Naomi, but it's still a good tier, all right. It's not S class, but I don't even know what my analogy is going. So
I mean,
you guys get what I'm saying.
It's not a fail state. That's what we're saying. It's not.
Yeah.
The only fail state on this podcast is when we don't do it.
Or when we talk about Mario. Which Mario was it even? Mario Party.
Was that even a fail state? Or was it just void? Who knows?
We'll ask you, listeners. Stay tuned on Twitter for a
yeah,
poll.
Where's the poll? Is Mario Party a void? Well, at the very least, this podcast is not the audio equivalent of allegedly leaving a flash drive in a medieval times that's full of your company's court information and also pornography, possibly of underage individuals. That was a weird story today. Did you see that?
Yeah, you want to illuminate me? I saw the peripherals, but I don't know the whole story.
I mean, in vague term, I mean, in general, the story is kind of circulating that the former attorney at Gearbox is accusing Randy Pitchford, the CEO of Gearbox, the company that makes Borderlands, of both stealing a bunch of money from the company and also having this weird flash drive that mixed work files with child pornography. That's really bizarre. And I'm just realizing that this might not be an appropriate topic for this podcast. But yeah, that was really weird, and I imagine it like that's just the starting point, and I imagine that it's gonna get weirder, right?
I mean, you did say medieval times, so it pretty much has to get weirder before it gets better, right?
Well, and the weird, I guess one of the weirder parts is that Randy Pitchford didn't deny that he had this flash drive that was full of pornography, but
didn't he like tweet out ominously too, or something?
I mean, he said it on a podcast. He admitted that he had this flash drive that had a bunch of work information and pornography on it.
Oh, and porn.
But he denied that the porn was of underage girls, and also claimed that it was for work research for a magic trick, which,
like, at that point, just shush.
I don't even know how you I mean, honestly, I had absorbed all of that information, but saying it out loud, it gets just progressively weirder.
Yeah.
Oh.
It sounds like it.
Gosh. Well, thoughts?
Men are awful creatures sometimes.
Yeah.
Don't look at underage porn ever, period.
Yep.
I mean, that shouldn't have to be said, but okay.
Report that to the police.
Yeah, that's not okay, even if you have a thinly veiled excuse of work research or whatever. Never okay. But, yeah, I guess moving on.
Yeah. Any other big news that you want to talk about?
Bungie dissociated from Activision as of this recording.
Yep.
So whatever that means for Division 2, we don't know, because, I mean, at least the cynic in me is like, this game has been out for a while. I don't know how much
Destiny
they can do.
2?
Yes, Destiny 2. I don't know if they can, release DLC that makes me want to go back, or if they're going to start working on Destiny 3. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. But, I mean, that was huge news, so...
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that basically they're going to keep milking money out of Destiny 2 for a little while. I would predict like another expansion or two for Destiny, and then I would imagine that they would either work on a follow-up to Destiny 2 because it's like their most recognizable thing, or they might start working on some original projects because they've been locked down into developing only Destiny stuff for the past 8 years. And I imagine they have some ideas for other things that they would like to do.
Yeah. Stuff with story, maybe. But I don't know.
Let's not get into how disappointing Destiny is on a storytelling level.
Yes.
For that, you can listen to our Destiny episode that came out a long time ago and was back when we had double digits on our episode numbers.
Double digits. All right, shall we talk games of the year?
I suppose we could. Speaking, I guess just one last thing. Speaking of, I mean, we had an entire month full of Pokemon stuff, and now apparently, there's going to be a CGI Pokemon film. You heard about this, right?
Oh, of course I did.
Yeah.
They're remaking the first movie, CGI.
Thoughts?
I'm fine with that. Hopefully that'll make the price of the original go down so I can go and buy that finally, because it's been a while, and I've been meaning to pick up that copy or buy it digitally or whatever. So, I mean, other than that, it doesn't bug me. I think it's going to be fine.
Some people seemed personally attacked.
Because people are ridiculous. I mean, it's fine. It's been out for over 20 years. I don't even know. Probably less than 20 years at this point. I don't know the exact, but it's fine. It's not like it's going to be a monstrosity. We already have that with Detective Pikachu. Maybe? Who knows? It's just gonna be like polished version, you know? Like it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. And just speaking of the Pokemon movie, we should have we should watch the original Pokemon movie and then do a podcast on that. I think that would be fun.
Because I've been meaning to watch it forever, and I have not had a chance. I've watched like every other movie except for that one so far.
Really?
Yeah. Like for real.
Oh. There are like 40 of those things.
Yeah. Okay, maybe not every single one, but a really decent chunk of the ones that came out around that time. So like 2 through, I don't even know. I don't know. There's a lot of them. But yeah, I'd be totally down for that.
Yeah. I'm interested to see if they stick more closely to the original vision of the Pokemon movie. Because apparently it was very different, like the Japanese version.
Yeah.
Went much darker with the material.
Yeah, I can't remember if it ever released. No, it probably did because there was an English dub, but there was like a kind of prequel short that dove into Mewtwo. So it'd be cool to see more of that like stuff that was released alongside it, because I think there's a few things kind of like Final Fantasy style where there was a freaking screenplay, a movie, anime, all that stuff. So it'd be cool if they kind of put all that stuff in one place and had it in like at least a special features area, so we can just have all of the Mewtwo and Mew lore in one place. That'd be pretty rad. But I mean, it is pretty damn dark, if you look at it, you know, if you actually pay attention to what's happening even in the games. I mean, poor Mewtwo.
Mewtwo's basically the equivalent of that Rick and Morty joke about the Butterbot. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Oh, there's like a small joke in one of the episodes of Rick and Morty where Rick invents a robot that's designed solely to serve him butter. And it has sentience and asks him.
And it's so sad that that's
purpose.
Just like a little throwaway joke.
Yeah.
Like it's like at the beginning of the episode and you forget about it.
Mewtwo's basically that, except with extreme psychic powers.
And thick thighs.
Heck.
Like, damn, Mewtwo.
Oh gosh. Don't Google that.
Thick ass thighs
Google
on Mewtwo.
That. Yeah.
But yeah, have you ever seen that short? I forget what it's called.
I have not.
You can find it on YouTube now. It's like, oh god, because there's one name in the US and then there's a name in Japan. It's like Mewtwo Origin. I don't know. I'm not full of solid information right now, I guess. But it shows Mewtwo while he's still in the test tube womb, with the little girl that the scientist who made him, and then clones of the 3 starters, and so they all connect telepathically and talk. But I'll try not to spoil it too much, but Mewtwo ends up having like a little breakdown, and ends up alone and questioning its existence, and that's why it gives a lot of context of why Mewtwo's so pissed off. And it's just kind of sad. And you can hear like Mewtwo's voice and how innocent it was before it got all angry being alone in a test tube for years and years and years. So, recommend it.
Okay. And to reiterate, I really do not recommend searching Mewtwo thick thighs.
I want to look that up now.
I did. I just am recommending you don't.
Well, I'm not one to listen to authority.
All right, well, get ready for Mewtwo in a thong and thigh highs. Anyway, moving on. Top 3 video games of 2018.
All right.
We made it.
To 2019, yes, we did. Kicking and screaming. Kinda. I don't know. It's been okay so far, I say on the 11th day. But yeah, I guess we wanted to do a tiered format for this where we talk about our third to the first, with the finale being our greatest game of 2018. So I'm gonna start off with like a little bit of a cheat. And that's with a Switch release, because we get tons of amazing Switch releases later on, and that can count as a 2018 release because I said so, and because Jack let me. So I'm gonna go with Okami. And Okami was a game that I had not gotten to play when it came out. I believe it was, at least the console I had was PS2. It might have even been PS1, maybe.
Oh, no, it was a PS2.
It was PS2? Okay. So I missed that when it came out. But I'd always want to play it because it's a puppy with magic powers and you paint. Like, come on, that's my genre. But, I mean, actually being able to play this game was pretty amazing. It's gorgeous, and it's still to this day, I think, one of a kind in its art style as well as its mechanics. And it looks good still. I mean, it's obviously not, up to... It could be even optimized more if it were to be released today, of course, but it still looks good for what they were trying to do.
So do you know if they did like the Wind Waker remaster treatment, or is it just like Okami but in HD?
I think it was just Okami but in HD.
Okay.
I don't think they did full treatment on it. I think they also fixed like the mechanics a little bit. So the brush wasn't as stiff and whatnot because, obviously with touchscreen and better controllers, it's easier to manipulate. So yeah, that was my cheat for the three of these. My other ones I promise will be actual 2018 releases.
Okay. I mean, it released in 2018 for Switch, so it counts. I think my number 3, I think it has to be Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
All right.
I definitely had a lot of problems with it, especially when it came to pacing and storytelling, and basically every part of it had problems. And there were some especially egregious ones that I don't think really got talked enough about, like the very prominently gay character in the cast, the senator, I can't remember what his name is, but yeah, having a big joke about him having a massive orgy with a goat was pretty gross.
Oh, that's not nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially in the context of like the Greek world, like everybody was getting down with everybody. Everybody. so making like a weird joke about how this prominent character has sex with goats and making him the stereotypical like gay character was just kind of not cool. But that being said, like, it was really awesome to be able to play as like a swashbuckling lesbian mercenary.
Yes, please.
That was great. And I loved that, even though like the relationship mechanics weren't really good or fleshed out or thought about, and there were problems. Like, and again, like I said, every aspect of this game has problems, and just because it looks really nice doesn't mean that those problems don't exist on textual levels. All I'm saying is that a lot of things could have been done better or differently, but at the end of the day, it makes my top 3 because
it was fun.
I mean, parts of it weren't even that fun. It just nailed the feel that it needed to nail.
All right.
It
created the ambiance.
Yeah. It created honestly, like, you could use the template that this game put forward and make such an amazing game. There's so much potential there, and so got me excited. It got me excited in a way that a lot of games in 2018 didn't get me excited. For example, you're not going to see God of War on my list. I played it, and I got bored, and I wasn't engaged with the narrative. And maybe that's on me for not meeting the game halfway or whatever, but it just didn't do anything for me. So with that, what's your number 2?
All right. This is going to be a huge shocker, but it's going to be Pokemon Let's Go.
What?
I know.
All right.
I know.
All right. Put it. What's your case?
I mean, so obviously as a remaster, you know, we know what we're going to expect with games like these. And especially with Pokemon, we get remasters months after they release, you know, with Pokemon Sun and Moon, we got Pokemon Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. You know, it's a part of the formula. But why it makes my top is because, I mean, it genuinely engaged me and I had a lot of fun with it. But not only that, Nintendo exceeded my expectations with what this game was going to be. They not only created this awesome world that definitely evoked the old emotions of the first gen game, but made it its own thing, and oh my gosh, still. But they also added some new mechanics that addressed a lot of the problems that I think new or people who just never got into Pokemon could appreciate and help them actually understand what Pokemon is and why it's so fun. And, you know, that was exactly what they needed to do. Like, for a lot of people, I know that, you know, the grinding aspect is a really big put off. But Nintendo was able to balance this game with its, you know, the different, like the Pokemon Go catch mechanics. I was wary as hell of that. Because you're not battling Pokemon as we have it for 20 plus years. But it worked, and that was surprising. And I had seen a lot of peers and the general public saying that they finally understood what these games were about. And that's amazing. I finally completed my Kanto Pokedex in a base game. I had never done that for the old game, and like that on its own was just so much fun to finally be able to do that. And it was still decently challenging. It wasn't impossible like the old games, at least the old non-doctored vanilla games. So yeah, it was a very well-rounded Pokemon experience that left me wanting remakes like this for every single generation. And that includes, you know, Sun and Moon, which only came out 2 years ago. So it's a solid top 3 for me for last year.
Okay. Yeah, that, I mean, I wouldn't even say that it was, like, a remaster. Like, that's a complete remake. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's a when you replace the capture mechanic with the stuff from Pokemon Go, that fundamentally changes how the game works and feels, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And no, I can see where you're coming from. I haven't played any of that game, but I imagine it's just the finest of nostalgia trips.
Oh yeah. And if you ever want to get into Pokemon, listeners out there who have not played a Pokemon game at all and might be intimidated by the series, like, this is definitely the place to start for sure. And that's coming from someone who, you know, before this game came out would say start, you know, at the beginning and work your way up. But this is a nice introduction into the series as well as a solid game on its own.
Yeah, so would you prefer playing this type of Pokemon game over the style that kind of built up the franchise?
That's tough, because as someone who devours Pokemon content, I would do both. I would say this new style is a lot less demanding and a lot less grueling than the old style, but I mean, I still love that old grind, so I still prefer both. I'll do both for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious about that.
Yeah.
Did they, like, were there any changes to, like, the story of the game, or was it literally like a 1-to-1 type of thing?
There were small things here and there. I'm not like a complete expert in everything that happened in the first games as they originally came out, so yeah. But there were little things like like the Savari Zone is gone, and then obviously it's replaced with the Pokemon Go place. I don't remember what it's called. It's like Pokemon Go Plaza or something like that. The game zone or whatever it was gone, because they didn't want children to be gambling, which is lame. That was a really kind of
be cool kids and gamble.
Well, I mean, in the game, it's just this arcade, right? And you can't do anything in it. It just exists to further the plot. Oh,
to be fair, I do remember playing that part as a kid and thinking to myself that it was a very lame arcade because all it had were slot machines.
Yeah, but at least it had something at that point. Oh, one big thing, Team Rocket was there. Like actual anime Team Rocket, Jesse James, and a non-talking Meowth for some reason. Don't really understand that. If you're gonna have Team Rocket from the anime there, why not just have your Meowth talk? But yeah, other than that, you could put the maps side by side and, still get that nostalgic feel. It is just like seeing... It was really cool to compare like how I imagined the world as a kid and how it kind of actually formed out in this gen. Yeah.
All right. Well, my number 2, and this will come as a big shock, Life is Strange 2 / Life is Strange... The Life is Strange 2 prequel, The Awesome Adventures of Captain Spirit.
See, that is interesting, because as of this recording, only the first chapter's out, right?
Yeah. And so that does make it, like, a weird game to nominate for a thing like that, but it, just that first episode of Life is Strange 2 genuinely had more memorable moments for me than pretty much any other game that I played in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Did you play it?
I did not. I played
Okay.
I played The Amazing Adventures of Captain Strange. Did I say that right?
Captain Spirit,
Captain Strange. And that was definitely a little stab in the gut.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was cool to see them take a different stride in their narrative. It was like a little transition to see how they would tell a different story than that of Chloe and Max. And really, the way I like to put it is that the engine that they built is kind of like a better Telltale, right? Because it is still to a point and click, but it's just so much more alive, I think.
I 100% agree with you. On top of that, I would really love to see either the ex-developers at Telltale or the people at who develops Life is Strange?
I mean,
they also did Vampire.
I can only think of the publisher.
Yeah, it's Focus. No,
it's not Focus Entertainment.
I mean, Focus Home Interactive published Vampire.
Yeah.
Don't Nod.
Don't Nod. Yep.
Which I also played this year and is my honorable mention, but we'll get to that later.
Ooh,
the people at Don't Nod, I would love to see them take on Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, because I just saw that movie for the first time. It was really, really good. Go see that movie if you haven't. It's like the best visually arresting movie I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, I've been wanting to see it.
Oh, we should have gone to see it when we hung out.
I know. I don't ever go to movies. I don't know.
Why?
Because of anxiety.
Oh.
I know.
Well, if you want to go see it, I would definitely see it again.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, we're on a podcast.
No.
Yeah, the Amazing Adventures of Captain Spirit or the Awesome Adventures of Captain Spirit, whichever, was a really good look at where they wanted to bring the franchise. And it was also just heartbreaking, but in a very subtle way that I really thought was a very strong piece of storytelling. And it led really nicely into a teaser for Life is Strange 2. And you get to Life is Strange 2, the very first episode, and like 1/4 of the way through, it really takes a turn and basically puts down the flag and is like, hey, we're going to do stuff we didn't do in the first game, and it's going to be crazy. And without giving anything away, a bunch of your... And I've talked about this multiple times on different episodes throughout the year, so sorry for retreading familiar ground. But I really, really loved this design, and that's basically through the first half of the episode, you do a bunch of things, and your decisions while doing those things determine how much money you have when you go to a convenience store about halfway through the episode. And depending on how much money you have, you can buy different things. And because of the context of the situation you're in, what you buy actually feels like it is super important. And so, like, one of the most memorable and poignant moments of all of 2018 video games for me was going through this convenience store as this young man and his little brother, and trying to figure out how much money I had to afford different things, and we needed all of those things, and debating with myself whether or not I should shoplift some of those things. And if it's worthwhile to do that, or if that would just get us in trouble, or all these different little questions. And it made for such an awesome gameplay experience that paid off the interactive nature of the medium. And it was really good at sucking you into the world and making you feel like your choices had mattered. And of course, it also... That episode also touches on the events of the first Life is Strange, which is another little gut punch, and also circles back around to a bunch of really hard emotional questions towards the end of the episode that made me feel things. It made me feel good, made me feel bad, and it ends on a really big cliffhanger that promises a completely different kind of narrative adventure than what we've really ever seen before. Like, the only other comparison I can think of in my head is The Walking Dead, except it's not like that at all. But a road trip across America as these two characters that are very different and endearing and have a lot of problems. I find that really interesting, especially as like a cultural artifact of 2018. So yeah, Life is Strange 2, my number 2 pick.
So, question.
Yeah.
If you could have Don't Nod make any property, like, ever, in that engine, what would you have them make?
Ooh.
I know.
Do you have an answer for that?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I'll use the time that you respond.
I mean, I guess, like, I already said they should make Spider-Man into the...
Oh, yeah, you did.
Into the Spider-Verse.
Okay, give me more. I want more. I'm greedy.
Okay, well, I mean, I would love, like, not remaking the movie, obviously, but I don't know, following up on one of those characters. They all seem to have really rich backstories, and they're all really endearing. And maybe just seeing what's going on in their universes. Maybe there are some after effects of the events of the movie that are need to be taken care of, or becoming bigger deals. I would love that art style. Seems like it would be perfectly suited for a video game, especially an engine like the one they have. And I just would love that. I mean, if you think about it, like, the core of Spider-Man is the anxiety and tension going on between balancing the hero stuff of Spider-Man with living a really drama-filled life, right? And so that seems like it's perfectly suited for suited superhero. Unintentional joke. But it seems really suited for a decision and narrative game, a decision-based narrative game. And I would love for that to be a thing.
Interesting.
Heck, there's a big media push right now between Gwen Stacy Spider-Man to kind of make her a thing. I would love that.
Yeah.
So maybe the Into the Spider-Verse thing focuses on her story, or Peter B. Parker. I think all of that is great. So anyway,
right on.
That's my answer.
It's a solid answer. I mean, it'd be really cool to have like a Pokemon adventure, but that's just pretty obvious. But I'm thinking of if they did like some graphic novels that I love, that'd be really cool. Because mediums like that would just be perfect for, you know, the visuals and of course the storytelling. Think of like Sandman, or
ooh, yeah,
right?
It's kind of weird that hasn't happened yet.
I'm sure it will, since we got American Gods and whatnot. Or even like, it's a little bit more obscure, but Lock and Key. Have you ever heard of Lock and Key?
No.
It's a pretty cool little fantasy story based around this house and demons and whatnot. So I just want to be able to jump into those universes more. So I'll take whatever I can get. But yeah. All right.
You know, can I make another thing I would love to see?
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see a narrative-based adventure game, and I know I'll never get this, so it's just kind of one of those things I'm gonna wish for forever. A narrative adventure game set in or based on the Gentleman Bastard series of books.
Okay.
If you've ever heard of those.
Have not. Sounds intriguing.
The first book is called The Lies of Locke Lamora. Okay. And it's really great. I really love that book. It definitely has problems, but I find a lot of the interactions that the main cast has with one another they're really endearing, and I like them. And I haven't read the book in a while, so maybe there are a lot of other problems with it. But I particularly remember that a number of characters get killed in really horrible ways. Mm-hmm. But that being said, it's like this magical, I guess to give you like the really short pitch, think magical world where magic is super powerful but really ambiguous, and you play as Locke Lamora, a person who can't do magic in this world and is really only good at being like a fast-talking con man thief. And so it's basically Ocean's 11 meets a magical fantasy world.
I'm for that.
And
if they put Rihanna in it, I'm definitely hooked.
Oh, you're all about that Rihanna Gotta love that battleship.
Uh-huh. Yes, indeed.
All right. So your number 1?
Oh my goodness. Okay.
What is it?
It's contradictory to what you said earlier, but that's fine. My number 1, God of War.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I challenge thee. But no, that's kind of the beauty of podcasts like this. Jack and I have totally different tastes in games and totally different perspectives in games, and that's way more interesting than if we just agreed with each other all the time.
I agree with you completely.
What? You ruined it. But yeah, God of War, my goodness. I had high hopes for this game. Ones that I tried to temper the whole, time during its development because, hype can be dangerous and I don't want to be hurt. But when it came out, and I was able to play through even the first segment, like maybe the first hour, up until your first fight with, I can't even remember his name anymore. But the first bad guy and the main Baldur.
I kept in my head. I was thinking Hodor.
Baldur.
Baldur.
I was stunned by this game. It had accomplished a lot of things cinematically that hadn't been done in games yet. At least this well. Like the non-cutting, I cannot, single track camera, whatever that is called. Sequence shot. Yep, single shot. I mean, I knew that was going to be a thing and I expected it to be a gimmick, but they wove it into the game and the narrative and used it as a storytelling device. Like, you're following Kratos in his grumpy face, but the way the camera moves, it is a mood in its own. So I appreciated the beauty in what they were able to create with just those small details, which is something we say a lot, I think, about games that we like, but small details in their storytelling. And I did really appreciate the fact that we were looking at Kratos' legacy, because the God of War games are extremely problematic, right? We have a very...
I don't know what you're talking about.
We have
flashback to Kratos using a woman to hold open a door that crushes her to death.
Yeah. So an extreme example of toxic masculinity, right? And extreme anger. Yes, and the one where he murders like what is it? A fisherman. He like kicks him, or he uses him as like a bridge in the first time or a ladder the first time he sees him, and then he keeps on seeing him and it just keeps on screwing him over and over. Just really insensitive, violent guy. So, I was never a huge fan of Kratos as a protagonist just because he embodied kind of lazy writing of a character. So I really appreciated what they were able to do with the narrative between him and his son. I thought it was a really good way to set up a way to deal with his legacy. Granted, there are still problems. We only see one female throughout the game, and then the other one is a dead female who becomes this pure entity, and we get into that in our other podcast, our other show, Women in Tropes and Games. If you become a patron, you can listen to that show. Shameless plug there. But
the first episode is free for everybody, though.
It is. So you can get a nice preview there. But the game just did a lot of things narratively that were very solid for me. And it connected a lot of dots. And the way I played through it, I played it more for narrative than, trophy completion or anything like that. So I'm sure that contributed to a lot of it. I didn't track off to the sides to do little mini quests. I just played through the story. And I love Jormungandr. Holy crap. That moment made me cry. I don't know if you made it to that part, Jack. But Jormungandr is the giant sea serpent who wraps around the world twice, I think. Mm-hmm. And so you see Jormungandr, and Boy summons him because he's able to speak in that language. And they summon him with a giant, like, blowhorn thing or whatever. And so the world is shaking, and then this giant serpent comes out of the water, and they were able to just nail the scale of this thing when it talked. It was just booming, and I seriously teared up at that moment because they were able to capture what that power would be. And I don't know, it was just little moments like that kept me hooked. And they also made the game Destiny pretty. And what I mean by that is every scene in it had attention to the color scale like Destiny does, and just pays attention to the intricate little details to make the shots really nice and composure. So yeah, that game was stunning and so much fun to play, and it was one of the first games I'd been able to genuinely enjoy grinding through in a while. It came out, I can't even remember, earlier this year, like March or something like that, or April, it might have been April. And I missed that feeling, and it had been a while since I'd have that feeling of just wanting to grind a game to get through the story. And not just get collectibles and all of that. So, yep, that was my game of 2018.
Okay. That was really sweet. Yeah, I guess what do you think? Well, so 2 things. First, I love that we can talk about the best games of the year and still talk about the problems they have, because even the best games have problems. And
everything
I think that's
has
something
problems.
Right, exactly.
There's nothing that's perfect out there.
And I think that's something that people forget from time to time. Like, yeah, everything falls short in some way, and it's not bad to talk about those things. And I think by talking about them, we can make other things better. So, on that note, what do you think could be done differently in a follow-up to God of War that would really improve it?
So, I think, and this is probably going to sound like just a blanket response, but the inclusion of more females, and not just females for the sake of females, but the female perspective. And this is just a off the top of my head example, but if we get a section of the game where we get the perspective of the mother that both Kratos and Boy have lost, I want to see who she is, but I want to see her built as a real person and not just this person on a pedestal who's the embodiment of purity and perfection. Like, obviously she's not. She has this, and this isn't going to spoil anything, but she has some huge secrets that are only revealed to even Kratos at the end of the game, and she has a backstory that is really interesting, and I don't want that to just be glossed over to be a frame for the male characters. And so one interesting thing they really did was with the Boy character, he starts showing some traits that his father has. I mean, it's kind of inevitable, he's his son, but it forces Kratos to see a mirror of himself almost and realize how damaging that is to not only the world around him because it's destructive, but to the boy himself. And it lets him have that moment of reflection to be like, hey, I murdered a lot of people out of rage? Even if they were gods, I did damage to myself and my family too, you know? So I would love to see more of that kind of contemplation. And hopefully it doesn't just, you know, use the foundation that they planted from this first game and just go on an adventure. You know, I want to see more of this story because it's storytelling that's more literary, and I'm a big nerd for that.
Okay, a really good answer.
Well, thank you.
A+. You get
Yay!
an A+
I needed
response.
it. I needed that.
You needed some affirmation.
Uh-huh.
You did a good job.
Thank you, teacher.
You always do a good job.
My millennialness is showing.
Well, my number one will probably come as no surprise to longtime listeners. Shadow of the Colossus.
Boom. I knew it.
Boom. It is a fully fledged remake of the game from the ground up for the PlayStation 4. And frankly, it is... I defy anyone to come up with a better looking game that came out this year. I genuinely think it is just absolutely jaw-droppingly gorgeous. I spent more time in that game screenshotting than I did in entire playthroughs of other games. And it's just so dang pretty and touching and such a great journey that I was privileged to be able to take again. And it's a game that I've played over and over and over throughout the years. It's been out now for like over, I think 10 years. I think it came out in 2008, maybe 2007. Was it 2006? Anyway, it was like between...
We're so great with our dates.
Over a decade, I think. And it's just... I love it so much. From everything from the design of the Colossi to the scale of the world relative to the player. Like... There's no reason for the world to be as big as it is except to let you sit back and admire how beautiful it is and how amazing everything looks. And not just like aesthetically, but also just it gives you time to contemplate what the game means, like what you're doing. And I think that's one of the most powerful things that Shadow of the Colossus does. Is it gives you these incredible highs when you are fighting these colossi and when you finally figure out how to scale them and get to their weak points and murder them. And then it makes you consider what the ramifications of those actions are. What does it mean to have killed these things? And over the years that I've played it, like the meaning for that for me, and I'll admit it's a very intensely personal choice for a game of the year for me. I realize that a lot of people have problems with the controls, and it's not everyone's cup of tea, especially if you're not a huge fan of puzzle games. Like the bosses are essentially giant moving puzzles, but it's been with me for so long that it takes on different meanings. And I think that's true of anything that you revisit at different points in your life. Like for me, it used to be like, oh, this epic love story. I really bought into the advertising that surrounded the game when it released back in the day. And the more I've played it, and the multiple times now that I've gone through it, the more I don't see it as a love story at all. The more it becomes for me, it became kind of like a tale of falling from grace, but that didn't quite jive with the ending of the game, which is very bizarre. Like, this game's been out for a while, but your main character becomes a baby, and that was kind of bizarre. Like, how do you interpret this? How do you process this? And I think, at least for me, it took on a lot of meaning this past year because I started my medical transition as a trans woman, and like, then I went back and played this game, and that's I can see that same journey or elements of that same journey in what the protagonist goes through in Shadow of the Colossus, because you're essentially making this deal with this you make a deal with this entity in Shadow of the Colossus, and it's ambiguous as to whether or not it's good or bad. It's just powerful. And you do it in order to bring to life this woman who's either dead or in a coma. It's never really... Well, I think she is dead. She's not alive. You're bringing her back from the dead. And in order to do that, you have to take these steps. You have to kill these colossi. And with every colossi you kill, the body of Wander, your main character, becomes more and more corrupted. Or an alternative viewing of that is it undergoes more and more changes. And the final step of this process turns Wander into this giant monster. And that's something that, for me, like, that's something that I have fears about, like, all the time. Like, am I doing the right thing? Is this process turning me into a monster? Like, all of those fears are that the game brings up are fears that I have about myself. And the end of the game is you're successful. You are reborn, and the woman comes alive. And that's like, you conquer those fears. You are reborn, and she comes alive. She opens her eyes. And that's really powerful to me, I think. And I feel like I don't have to spell out why. So it's a very personal game to me, and it has always been since the first time I played it. But it's really interesting how it takes on all these different attributes as time goes on, and the PlayStation 4 version of it is like the best version of it you could get. I mean, there's always something to be said about playing the original on the original hardware. For example, the fog effects are different, and the character model for Wander is, I think, better in the PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 3 remaster. And I think that the changes that Wander's body goes through in the PS2 and PlayStation 3 versions are more pronounced and easier to tell when compared against the PlayStation 4 version. Really, the only major complaint I have for the PlayStation 4 version is that Wander's character model, his face looks not good. It's like weirdly doughy and like a baby face, and
like cartoony, maybe
not cartoony. It's like a just round and strange looking, as opposed to like the original character model had this very thin and angular face. And it became kind of more demonic looking as the game went on. And that happens, but it's much more subtle on the PlayStation 4 version, to the point where you really wouldn't be able to tell unless you saw two pictures side by side, comparing like the previous stage with the current one. But that's my only problem with it. The rest of the game is just gorgeous and heartbreaking and beautiful and inspiring and just as great, if not better, than when it came out on PlayStation 2. So, go and play the game. It's really one of the best purchases you could make out of 2018's lineup.
Don't make us go back. Well, thank you so much for sharing, because, I mean, yeah, it sounds like a definitely deeply personal game, so I'm glad you were able to replay it and get all those same feelings and more with it. So,
well,
that's awesome.
I figure, our show is all about being open and honest with people about how games help us with, our different problems in life or give us new perspectives. And like, that's not, I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, but the sort of perspective that I have on games isn't one that typically gets seen or heard in formats like this. So, yeah, I hope it was helpful or good to listen to. I don't know. That's my best game of 2018.
Heck yeah. Well, are we gonna talk our
honorable mentions?
Honorable mentions? Are we gonna do it? I suppose we should, since we've been talking about it.
Yeah, we talked about it. So, what's your honorable mention?
So my honorable mention is a game that I will admit is not very strong, but I had a ton of fun with. And that's Far Cry 5.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I know. I definitely didn't have a lot of high hopes for this game because it's, I don't know, Far Cry can be very hit or miss, to put it mildly. But yeah. And this is why it's an honorable mention, because I'm going to have to say put the story aside, because that's that's kind of a big thing to put aside. The world itself was fun as hell. And I did genuinely enjoy unlocking the new areas and kind of doing those standard things, and just moving along through the story, just as a means to progress through the game. Again, not to not for the amazing story beats. And it was just fun to like have a puma and a bear on my team and have them go attack people and listen to their screams when they got attacked by a cougar. Like, I did everything in my power to make sure that my doggy would never die, just little stupid things like that. It was a ton of fun, and every once in a while I just need games that are just fun, ones that I don't have to analyze too much to understand why I like them. Yeah, that was a fun one for me this year.
Okay. So my honorable mention goes to Vampire, another Don't Nod game, and one that it has problems, okay, and I readily recognize that it has problems, but I love the ambitious idea behind it. The idea that as a vampire, as not just a vampire, but a vampire doctor, you have both a need to feed yourself and also the desire to help people and treat patients in the middle of this plague. And how do you balance those two things? And I think where the game kind of trips up is you don't necessarily have to balance those two things. You just you can just fight people and do missions without feeding on innocent people, or even feeding on guilty people, and like there's not a huge difference. Like you're basically just putting yourself at a small level disadvantage. But I love the aesthetic of the game. I love the feel of the game. I love the general story of the game, which goes in some really weird and interesting directions with like vampire hunting societies and how the Society of Vampires works. And I especially love the last half an hour of the game, which is honestly some of the best parts of the entire game. Like I felt like finishing Vampire and getting to those last 30 minutes was just a great storytelling experience, and I really wanted more of that. So I would say go and buy Vampire just so we get a sequel, because I really want to see how this all works, because it's not really a game about vampires. It's like a weird it's like vampires are a weird after effect of this giant eldritch entity. And I'm not really spoiling anything. I'm just throwing that out there. It's really cool. That's a really cool idea, and we should support cool ideas. So
so give them money.
Yeah. Plus Don't Nod makes Life is Strange, so give them money so they can do more of that, please.
Well, heck yeah. We had some good games in 2018, didn't we?
Yeah.
Had a nice variety too, which is very refreshing. You know, it wasn't just the same old. So
yeah, we probably should have picked our favorite episodes of 2018 or something. Like we did spend an entire year talking about games.
Yeah. We'll ask the viewers, listeners.
I know what my favorite episode of 2018 was.
What was it?
It was episode 88, The Long Dark, featuring Naomi Lugo. The very first episode you were on.
Aww, you dork. You're so sweet.
I can feel the cheek pinch through the screen.
Good, because I was definitely sending that through my mic. But yeah, where can our listeners find all of our amazing past episodes from 2018?
Good transition. You can find all of our episodes on Libsyn.com or iTunes or really any podcasting app. We're on pretty much all of them with the exception of Spotify. And I figured out why we're not on Spotify, and that's because we use tracks from Overclocked Remix at the end of our episodes, and we give attribution, but automated systems will still, even though we're using them correctly as per the rules of Overclocked Remix, the system still flags some of the ending music. So apparently Spotify's not happy about that, but I can still try and see what I can do. You can also find us over on patreon.com/bestgamesperiod. And if you support us with $1 per month or more, you gain access to a bunch of really cool stuff, like exclusive episodes that only our patrons get to hear, and other cool things like that. 2019, we're going to try and come up with some really cool extras, and we already have some ideas. So if there's anything you would like to see us do, please let us know. You can do that over on Twitter at bestgamesperiod. And we do pay attention, so yeah, do that.
Yeah, we love hearing from you guys, because you guys are the best.
Heck
Hearts.
Yeah. You can also find us over on Extra Life, community.extra-life.org, the community side of the website. And if you don't know what Extra Life is, it's a fantastic charity that helps sick and injured kids. It's part of Children's Miracle Network Hospitals. And basically, you can go sign up over at extra-life.org, and you will be able to then select which hospital you would like to support, and 100% of everything you raise goes directly to that hospital to help sick and injured kids. It's a really fantastic charity, and by the way, you raise that money by spending time playing games with your friends and family and getting them to donate, and it's just really good all around. So do that, please. Again, that's extra-life.org, and you can find us on the community side of the website, community.extra-life.org.
Heck yeah. Getting involved with Extra Life sounds like a excellent New Year's resolution, doesn't it?
It does.
Hint. Hintity hint, hint.
Cough, cough. Do you have anything else to add?
I don't. Except, dear listeners, we love you, and we do mean that. And we're really excited to spend another year with you. So keep on listening.
And with that, we'll see you on the flippity dippity.